can talk to more people than ever. But somehow it feels harder to connect with just one. So why does dating feel more complicated the easier it gets? You open an app just to check, just for a minute before bed. And suddenly, it is 40 minutes later. You swipe past dozens of faces. Some are attractive, some are interesting. Most you forget instantly. You match with someone. You feel a small spark of excitement. Then you stare at the chat box. What do you even say? You type something, delete it, type again. They reply 3 hours later. You reply 5 hours later. Not because you are busy, but because it somehow feels right to wait. And this is where things get interesting. You go on a date. It feels good at first. Easy conversation, comfortable silence. Then later that night, something shifts. You start overthinking small details. Did they like you enough? Did you seem too eager? You check your phone, nothing yet. But something about it feels different. Your friends are doing the same thing. Scrolling, matching, talking to multiple people at once. Everyone is dating. But no one seems satisfied. And that is not the strange part. At first it seems random. Just modern life being busy, just people having more options. But there is actually a pattern. Why do conversations fade so quickly now? Why does everyone seem replaceable? And why does it feel like no one is really choosing anyone? These questions keep looping in the background. And slowly, something starts to connect. You notice how fast people move on. One awkward message, one delayed reply, and suddenly the interest is gone. Not because something serious happened, just because something felt slightly off. You notice how people keep backup options, talking to 3 people at once, maybe more, just in case. You notice how dates feel like interviews, evaluating, comparing, measuring potential, instead of just being present. And this is where things get interesting. Even when things go well, people hesitate. They hold back. They stay slightly detached, as if fully committing feels risky. But something else is happening. You start to feel like you are being evaluated constantly. Your photos, your replies, your timing. Everything becomes part of a quiet judgment, and you begin doing the same. You analyze profiles quickly, decide in seconds, move on just as fast. People become impressions, not experiences. And this is where things start to shift. Dating is no longer just about connection. It becomes about positioning, how you appear, how you respond, how you manage perception. And that changes everything. You begin to notice a strange tension. People want closeness, but they avoid vulnerability. People want attention, but they fear being too available. People want something real, but they behave in ways that feel temporary. And this contradiction keeps repeating. But that is not the strange part. The strange part is how normal it feels. No one really questions it anymore. You expect delayed replies. You expect conversations to fade. You expect things to not work out. And slowly, your expectations reshape your behavior. You become less expressive, more cautious, more controlled, just to protect yourself from something unclear. And this is where things get bigger, because this is no longer just about individuals. It starts affecting how everyone interacts. Group chats feel different. Flirting feels different. Even friendships start to shift. Everything becomes slightly more distant, slightly more calculated. And this is where things get interesting. Think about how often you check your phone now. Not because someone messaged you, but because they might have. That feeling of anticipation, that small hit of possibility, it keeps you coming back. And this is not accidental, because behind all of this, there is a system. a system designed around attention. Dating apps are not just tools. They are environments. And those environments shape behavior. Every swipe gives you feedback. Every match gives you validation. Every message gives you a small reward. And over time, your brain starts adapting. You begin to associate people with that feeling. Not connection, not compatibility, but stimulation. And this is where things get interesting. The goal quietly shifts. It is no longer about finding someone. It becomes about feeling something. A spark, a rush, a moment of excitement. And once that feeling fades, so does the interest. But that is not the strange part. The strange part is how quickly that feeling fades now. Because there is always another option, another match, another conversation, another possibility waiting. And this abundance changes perception. People start to feel interchangeable, not intentionally, not consciously, but subtly. And this changes how deeply you invest. Why invest fully when something else might be better? Why commit early when there is still uncertainty? And this is where things get complicated. Because everyone is thinking the same thing. Everyone is holding back slightly, waiting, testing, observing. And that creates a loop. No one fully commits, so no one feels chosen. And because no one feels chosen, everyone keeps searching. And this is where things get interesting. The system rewards this behavior. More swipes, more time spent, more engagement. The longer you stay uncertain, the longer you stay inside. And over time, this shapes your expectations. You start to expect novelty. You start to expect constant stimulation. And real connection starts to feel slower, quieter, less exciting at first. And that becomes a problem. Because real connection takes time. But the system is built for speed. And this is where things start to break. You go on a date with someone kind, someone genuine. But something feels missing. Not because they are wrong, but because the feeling is not intense enough, not immediate enough. And this is where things get interesting. You confuse intensity with compatibility. You confuse excitement with connection. And slowly, your sense of what feels right shifts. But something else is happening. Even outside of apps, this mindset follows you. In conversations, in relationships, in everyday interactions. You become more selective, but also more uncertain, more aware of options, but less sure about decisions. And this creates a quiet restlessness. Nothing feels quite enough. And that feeling is hard to explain. But you recognize it. That subtle sense that something is off, even when everything seems fine. And this is where things get deeper. Because it is not just about dating anymore. It is about how we relate to each other, how we value attention, how we interpret connection, and how we decide what matters. The system does not force anything. It just nudges behavior. Small adjustments, repeated over time, until they feel natural, until they feel like your own choices. And this is where things get interesting. Because you do not notice it happening. It feels like preference. It feels like instinct. But it is shaped. Quietly. Consistently. And over time, your idea of love changes. It becomes faster, more fragile, more uncertain, and harder to hold on to. But something about it feels different. You start to miss something you cannot fully describe. Not a person, not a specific moment, just a feeling, a slower kind of connection, a deeper kind of presence. And this is where things come back to you. Think about how you approach conversations now, how quickly you judge, how easily you move on, how often you hold back just a little. Not because you want to, but because it feels safer. And this is where things get personal. You are not doing anything wrong. No one is. Everyone is just adapting to the same environment, trying to navigate the same system. But the system shapes the outcome, even when intentions are good. And this is where things get interesting. You start to realize something subtle. The problem is not just other people. It is not just timing. It is not just bad luck. It is something built into the way everything works now. And once you see it, it is hard to unsee. You notice it in every interaction, every delayed reply, every fading conversation, every almost connection. They all follow the same pattern. And that pattern feels familiar, because you have been part of it too. And this is where the realization settles in. Dating did not just become harder, it became different. Not in an obvious way, but in a quiet, structural way. A way that changes behavior without announcing itself. And that is why it feels so strange. Because nothing looks broken, but something feels off. And you cannot quite explain why. And maybe that is the point. Because the system works best when it feels normal. When it blends into everyday life. When it becomes invisible. And this is where things come full circle. You can talk to more people than ever. But somehow it still feels harder to connect with just one. And now, you might start to understand why.